I'm Lottie.
Standing in the torrential rain outside my childhood home, I stared at the new lock on the door in disbelief. My sister, Ava, stood in the doorway, her face cold and distant. "You have no right here," she said firmly, as if I were a stranger. The eviction notice in my trembling hand claimed the house belonged solely to her. How could the sister I'd raised after our parents' tragic passing treat me like this? I'd sacrificed my education, my career, my entire youth for her. As the rain soaked through my clothes, I swore silently that this betrayal wouldn't be the end. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a small coastal town in Maine, in a cozy, old cottage by the sea that had been in our family for generations. Ava was 6 years younger than me. We had an inseparable bond, spending our summers exploring the beach and our winters huddled by the fireplace. I was the practical one, always planning and looking out for her, while she was the free, spirited artist with a wild imagination. Our world shattered when I was 20 and Ava was only 14. One stormy night, our parents were caught in a terrible fishing accident. The news came like a thunderbolt, shattering my dreams of attending a top-tier business school on a full scholarship. I was in my first year at a local college, but as I watched Ava cry uncontrollably at the funeral, I knew I couldn't leave her. Our only distant relative, Uncle Henry, lived in a far-off city and had his own family to take care of. The thought of Ava going into foster care was unbearable, so I dropped out of college. The following years were a blur of long hours and hard work. Our parents had left some insurance money, but most of it went towards paying off the mortgage and maintaining the old cottage. I took up multiple jobs, working at a local diner during the day and cleaning at a hotel at night. My hands got rough and chapped from the constant scrubbing and exposure to the cold sea air. But I made sure Ava had everything she needed. I attended her school events, helped with her art projects, and supported her dreams. When Ava was accepted into a prestigious art school with a partial scholarship, I was overjoyed. We sat at our kitchen table, and I held her hand as I said, "Mom and Dad would be so proud of you." She smiled and replied, "This is because of you, Lori. I wouldn't be here without you." Everything changed when Ava met Ryan during her junior year at art school. He was a wealthy, charming art dealer from the city. When he came to our cottage for the first time, he seemed polite, complimenting me on all I'd done for Ava. But I soon noticed some things that bothered me. He made snide remarks about the simplicity of our cottage, and when Ava mentioned my plan to go back to school one day, he scoffed, saying it was too late for me. As time went on, Ava started to change. She began to adopt Ryan's expensive tastes and spend more time with his high society friends. She stopped coming home for holidays and started referring to the cottage as my childhood home in conversations with her new friends. Ryan also started making suggestions about renovating the cottage, saying it was too shabby for Ava's new status as a rising artist. I tried to defend our home, reminding him of all the memories it held, but it seemed like my words fell on deaf ears. When Ryan proposed to Ava after 2 years of dating, the engagement was a lavish affair. The ring was huge, and the wedding plans were over the top. I was happy for Ava, but I was also worried about the cost. She asked me to contribute to some of the wedding expenses, and even though I'd been saving to go back to school, I agreed. I worked extra shifts and dipped into my meager savings to help make her wedding perfect. After the wedding, Ava and Ryan went on a long honeymoon. I continued to take care of the cottage, paying all the bills from my meager earnings. One day, while cleaning their room, I found a legal document in a folder on Ava's desk. It was a consultation with a property lawyer about establishing sole ownership of the cottage. When I confronted Ava that evening, she was defensive. She said it was just a consultation and that since my name wasn't on the deed, the cottage legally belonged to her. Ryan, who walked in during our argument, just stood there with a smug look on his face, saying it was just a matter of legalities. I wanted to believe that Ava wouldn't betray me, but as the weeks passed, I noticed more changes. Ryan started talking about selling the cottage to invest in Ava's art career, and Ava seemed to agree. I felt like a stranger in my own home, the place where I'd raised Ava and where we'd shared so many happy memories. Then one day, I got an opportunity to attend a week-long business training program in another city that could lead to a better paying job in the diner. Ava encouraged me to go, saying it was a great opportunity. Throughout my trip, she sent me unusual texts, asking about my exact return time and if I was taking a taxi straight home. When the training was unexpectedly cut short due to the instructor's illness, I decided to surprise Ava. But when I arrived home, I saw a security van parked outside, and two men were changing the locks. Ava and Ryan appeared at the door. She told me coldly that they had decided the cottage was only hers and that I needed to leave. Ryan showed me some papers claiming the deed was solely in Ava's name. I demanded to see the original will, but the version they showed me seemed different from the one I remembered. With nowhere else to go, I called my friend Lily, who lived in a small apartment. She offered me a place to stay, but I was heartbroken and in shock. A few days later, I received a formal eviction notice from a well-known law firm. Among the attached documents, I found a paper I'd signed years ago, right after our parents' death. Ava had told me it was just routine paperwork, but in reality, it was a document giving up my claim to the cottage. I was devastated, but then Lily suggested that I talk to her cousin, Max, a local property lawyer. Max listened to my story carefully and reassured me that I had a case. He said that my years of mortgage payments and property maintenance could establish a constructive trust, and my sacrifice of going to college for Ava could be considered a form of contract. As we started building my case, we found some witnesses. Our old neighbor, Mr. Thompson, who had seen me take care of Ava and the cottage for years, agreed to testify. He also reminded me of a safety deposit box our parents had at the local bank. When I went to the bank, I found the original, unaltered will, which clearly stated that the cottage was to be shared equally between Ava and me. Max also hired a financial investigator to look into Ryan's background. It turned out that Ryan was deeply in debt due to his failed art investments, and he was trying to get his hands on the cottage to solve his financial problems. During the legal battle, I also discovered a secret about Ava. I found an old adoption certificate in the safety deposit box, which revealed that Ava was adopted. Our parents had planned to tell her when she was older, but their accident had prevented them from doing so. I was torn about whether to use this information in the case, but I decided not to hurt Ava with this secret. Just before the trial, I decided to meet Ava alone at our favorite seaside diner. When she arrived, she looked pale and tired. I told her about the adoption, assuring her that it didn't change our sisterhood. We talked about Ryan's manipulations, and she finally broke down and confessed that Ryan had found out about the adoption and had used it to make her feel insecure about her place in our family. He had convinced her that securing the cottage was the only way to prove her belonging. We decided to present a united front against Ryan. We gathered evidence of his financial fraud and emotional abuse. When we confronted Ryan at the cottage, he was furious. He tried to intimidate us, but Ava stood up to him and told him that it was over. She served him with divorce papers and a restraining order on the spot. 1 year later, the cottage was restored to our joint ownership. We had removed all of Ryan's modern and cold-looking furniture and replaced it with the cozy, familiar pieces that we loved. Ava had left her high-pressure art world job and started working at a local art school, helping young artists. I had also gone back to college, taking evening classes in business, and we were throwing a housewarming party to celebrate. As our friends and neighbors arrived, I looked around at the home we had reclaimed and the life we were rebuilding. I knew that our parents would be proud. Family, I've learned, isn't defined by blood or legal documents, but by the love and support we give each other through the hardest times. I'm grateful that Ava and I found our way back to each other, stronger than ever. If you've ever experienced family betrayal or reconciliation, I'd love to hear your story in the comments.